After those long dark nights, now my world is bright. Islam is my sight. Now I found the light. After those long dark nights, now my world is bright. Islam is my sight. Now my world is bright.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to The Straight Path. I'm your host, Fuad Muhammad. Muslims today are finding it very challenging in raising up their children, especially in these modern times. And many parents are asking the question, how do we give the proper tarbiyah, and how do we correct our children when the society does not support what we call even beating the kids, and when society gives more rights to the kids, even in some cases more than the parents. Well, to talk more about this topic, we have with us Sheikh Asim Luqman Al-Hakim. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh, and welcome to The Straight Path.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you for having me.
And we also welcome on the episode Brother Mahmoud Sayyid. Assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Before we go into the actual topic of the episode, Sheikh, if you can just briefly give us the scenario and understanding of children and parents' relationship in Islam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala abdihi wa rasulih al-Amin. Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. It is a well-known fact that every individual has rights.
Mm-hmm.
And he also has obligations. And children are not any different. So the children have rights. Their parents should give them their rights. Yet when they grow up, or even while they're children, they have obligations to fulfill towards Allah the Almighty, towards their parents, towards their siblings, etc. So Islam is a religion of responsibility and accountability, and that is why Allah the Almighty instructed us to fulfill our obligations and to do what we're entrusted with. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well told us that every single one of us is accountable on the Day of Judgment. And he said that everyone is responsible, and every responsible person is accountable on the Day of Judgment about or over those who he is responsible for. Therefore, the relationship is the relationship of rights and obligations. Once you receive your rights, you have to give your obligations, and sometimes you have to give your obligations without getting your rights, because this is what you're obliged to do.
Yeah, if you can quickly highlight some of the rights of the children on their parents.
Well, the first most important right of a child upon his father is to choose a mother. And his right over his mother is to choose his father. Meaning that this begins before the creation of this child.
Yes, subhanAllah.
So if a man wants to marry, it is his obligation towards his offsprings that he chooses the suitable wife. And this was illustrated in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he told us that a woman is married for a number of reasons. For her wealth, for her beauty, for her lineage, for her family's name. Yet you should, as an individual, choose the one with Iman, with belief, with Islam, with the religion, the one who is practicing. Now, if you can have this woman with all the other four, then this is a win-win situation, but most likely you'll find this woman in paradise, not on this earth, unfortunately. Nevertheless, this is the one who you should choose, the one with the religion. And as for the wife, she should choose her husband to be a religious practicing person. The Prophet tells us, ﷺ, whenever someone proposes to you, that is, to your daughter, to your sister, and he is a practicing person. He is a strong Muslim. And his ethics, his conduct, his behavior is acceptable or accepted, then you must give him in marriage. He did not talk about his wealth. He did not talk about his lineage. He did not talk about his physique. But the Prophet ﷺ mentioned how he treats others, his ethics and behavior and manners, and about his religion as well.
Okay, so that's the first right that the child had, and
Yes.
that's before his existence.
Yes, once he is born, then it is his right to be given a good name. And that is why Umar ibn Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, was so harsh on a man who was complaining of the behavior of his son. So Umar got outraged. He instructed his soldiers to bring the son. And he was brought in front of him. And he asked him, why aren't you being so fair and kind to your father? He said, because ask him what he called me. He married a slave woman. And now this is with me until I die. I'm the son of a slave woman. And he called me a bad name instead of giving me a good name. And he never taught me Quran or religion or Arabic. He didn't teach me anything. So Uthman looked at the man, and that is Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, Jazakallah khair. He looked at the man and he reprimanded him for doing all of these things, and he not giving his son his rights.
Okay, so it's very important. We're not going to look at the rights of the child on the parents as yet, but from what you're saying, the very first right the child has is on his mother and father, is choosing a right parent for him.
That's true. The foundation is very important. You cannot build a strong, big house without laying the good foundations for that.
Okay. The ideal parents will bring up an ideal kid. What are some qualities of an ideal parent, an ideal mother and an ideal father?
Going back to your remark, not necessarily that an ideal parent would bring up an ideal kid, because this is something in the hands of Allah. I do my best, and the rest is upon Allah Azza wa Jal. If you look at Nuh, peace be upon him, Noah, his son was a kafir, and he died and was drowned in the floods. But no one would doubt the methodology that Nuh, peace be upon him, used with his child. But he was the black sheep. He did not obey and he did not follow his father, and this is why he died as a disbeliever. But generally speaking,
yes,
it is usually the result that when we have a good ideal father and mother, that we would have a good child.
Theoretically speaking.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, what is the best way of having an ideal parents, or what are the characteristics of such parents? It's difficult. You don't have one glove that fits all, because people differ.
Yes.
Yet the main headline should be that they are practicing Muslims. And when I talk about practicing Muslims, I don't necessarily only mean that a person with a beard and a short thobe and a woman that covers from head to toe, and mashallah, they are the perfect couple. No.
Oh, and as well, I don't know how many Western countries you've visited, but an ideal Muslim is one who prays 5 times a day. That's it. An ideal Muslim is one who prays 5 times a day. If he's going to the masjid praying 5 times a day, she's praying 5 times a day at her home, it's an ideal Muslim.
No, this is not the ideal Muslim. Definitely neither in Saudi Arabia, where I come from, or in the United States of America, or elsewhere. An ideal Muslim is a practicing Muslim. So if he prays 5 times a day in the masjid, mashallah, and he keeps a big beard, and his trousers or thobe is above his ankles, mashallah, he's practicing by the looks of it, but he deals in interest, or he lies, or he cheats and deceives, or he abuses his wife, or he is not kind to his parents, or he is not kind to his neighbors, he doesn't connect to his next of kin, he's not a practicing Muslim, he's an awful Muslim. Therefore, when we are talking about ideal parents, we are referring to those who are truly practicing Muslims. Those who wish that they can save themselves from a situation by lying, but remember Allah and they know that they can't lie, so they say the truth, regardless of what's going to happen to them. These are the people that I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, we're talking about that there are two parties, the mother and the father, and we just mentioned the importance of both of them being ideal Muslims. What about when one party is the ideal Muslim, the other party doesn't support? How devastating is this towards the upbringing of a child?
It is very devastating, because he's like torn between two lovers, feeling like a fool. Loving both of them is breaking all the rules. The child is stranded. He doesn't know which one to follow. One, have it be the mother, is telling him to pray and to do righteous things and to be truthful, while the father is telling him to not attend the prayers in the masjid and to focus on his studies and to have fun. Why don't you have a girlfriend? You're 7 years old and you don't have a girlfriend? What kind of man are you? So it definitely is affecting the child's psychology, and is causing a lot of problems to him. And may Allah have mercy on such children and such houses, but unfortunately there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Muslim houses that are built on such chaos.
Okay, I want to break it down a bit as well, Sheikh, before I ask you the other question. Let's categorize the children into three categories: under 10, the teenage years, and after marriage. We're not going to concentrate after marriage because they're already big grown men and women. Let's concentrate on the 2 years, on the two groups, because these are the years they live with their parents. How does the parent establish a relationship with the child, and what sort of relationship should it be with the child at the age of 10 and below, and during the teenage years?
There isn't anything that is written on this in the Sunnah that restricts you to deal with the child in a particular manner. Yet if you look at the hadiths covering this, or better more, if you look at the verses of the Quran covering this, you'd find that there are ways of addressing the children. For example, we're talking about 10 years and below. The Prophet ﷺ used to give confidence to children, used to play with children. In one incident, Anas ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, he had a young brother, and he was about 4 years old, and his name was Aba Umair. Abu Umair. It was said that this was the boy that died, and then the Prophet ﷺ made dua for Sulaim and Abu Talha, that Allah may substitute them with more children, and they had like 10 or 11, all of them reciting the Quran by heart.
Subhanallah.
So this child was about 3 or 4 years old, and he had a small bird that he was keeping and playing with in a cage. And when the Prophet came ﷺ once, the boy was sad and the bird died. So the Prophet ﷺ played with the boy, and he said, Aba Umair, ماذا فعل النغير? And he used to call the boy Aba Umair, which is a name given to someone who is a father. Yet he was giving him confidence and courage. So he would not call him Abdullah, for example. He would call him with a name as if he has a wife and children, so that he would make this feeling of responsibility grow in him. Ash-Shafi'i, may Allah have mercy on his soul, spent the night at Ahmad ibn Hanbal's house. And when they woke up for Fajr, the maid told Ahmad ibn Hanbal, is this Shafi'i, the Imam you're talking about? He said, yes, why? I put the water next to his door so that he would perform ablution for night prayer, and he didn't perform 1 rak'ah of night prayer. He smiled. They went for Fajr and came back, and then Ahmad told Imam Shafi'i about what the maid said. And he said, yes, she's right. I did not pray night prayer. I sat for the whole night contemplating of the hadith, Aba Umair, ماذا فعل النغير.
Subhanallah.
When the Prophet ﷺ said to the young brother of Anas, these 4 words, he said, I got 80 benefits out of it.
80 benefits.
80.
Subhanallah.
And Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Fath al-Bari, he listed like 60 or 70 of them. Just saying how, the benefits you get from these 4 words of this incident. Having said that, this is how the Prophet used to, ﷺ, treat the children with confidence, with love. And he would teach them, he would defend them. In an incident, if I'm not mistaken, Abdullah ibn Amir, may Allah be pleased with him, he was a young child, younger than 7 or 8 years old. And the Prophet was walking once and he saw his mother telling to him, come Abdullah, take this. And she did this. So the Prophet said, ﷺ, what's in your hand? What do you want to give him? She opened her hand and she said, it's a date, O Prophet of Allah. The Prophet said, ﷺ, and the child is the one who's narrating this hadith. He said, by Allah, if you did not give him this date, it would have been written a lie on the Day of Judgment. So this tells us that a mother should not, by any means, lie to her child. And I know, out of experience, that 90% of what the mothers and the fathers say to the children is a lie. The father is going to pray in the masjid, or he wants to go and get groceries. The child wants to go with him, and he says, Father, take me with you. He said, no, I can't. I'm going to the doctor, and he's going to give me an injection. So what do you think the child would say? Thank you. Go ahead. May Allah be with you. This is a lie. So this is one of the things that one can learn from the Prophet's teachings, alayhi salatu wasalam.
Okay, we'll come back to that point, inshallah, but we'll take a short break here on The Straight Path, and we'll be back, inshallah, right after this.
Now my world is bright, Islam is my sight.
Earth, the human heart, greed, exploitation, hatred, all diseases of the heart. For the cure, join Huda TV every Sunday at 20 GMT for Moments for the Heart.
Now my world is bright, Islam is my sight.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. You're watching The Straight Path. Our topic today, how to correct your children the Islamic way. And we're still talking to Sheikh Asim Luqman Al-Hakim. Sheikh Asim, just before we went to the break, we were talking about how you were giving us a few examples from the Sunnah of how parents should be dealing with children. And what I can understand from it is that parents should have the ability to respect their kids, whatever age it may be, because the Prophet ﷺ warned the Sahabiya that if she didn't have a date in her hand, then it would have been counted against her as a lie. And this showed, and the way he treated the small boy, the small brother of Anas, his bird died, he treated him with utmost respect. What this does for the kid, when you treat a kid with respect, what it does for him in his character building?
Well, it has to, without any doubt, cascade to the way he treats others. And if you look at, for example, Anas, may Allah be pleased with him, he was brought to the Prophet ﷺ by his mother, Sulaym, may Allah be pleased with her, and he was just about to become 10 years old. And she said, O Prophet of Allah, this is your servant, Anas. Let him be with you, learn from you, he's a smart child. Anas says that I've accompanied the Prophet ﷺ for 10 years. Never ever he told me for something that I had done, why did you do this? And never ever he told me for something I did not do, wouldn't you have done so and so? So the Prophet ﷺ used to treat all with respect and with love and compassion. If he did not like something, it would appear on his face. But he would not slander, he would not curse, he would not do what we do. And this causes the child to treat others in a nice and beautiful manner. It was reported that a boy was walking with his father once between the mountains. And the boy shouted, and he heard someone shout in reply. So the boy said, "Who's this?" And he heard someone saying, "Who's this?" And the boy started saying bad words, cursing the person. And the same cursings came back to him. And the boy was furious. So the father said, "Son, what are you doing?" He said, "Don't you listen to what he's saying back to me?" And of course, the boy was so young, he did not know that this was the echo of his own voice.
Yes.
The father told the boy, "Okay, why don't you try and say, 'Good morning. How are you? You're a nice person. I love what you do.' And see what he tells you." And the boy did this, and of course, he heard the same nice words. So if we treat our children in the same fashion, this will show. And this is what they're going to be brought up to. And that is exactly how they will treat others, like we treat them.
And it's the aspect of patience as well during this age.
Which is the most difficult thing. Because you're stronger, you're the father, you have all the means to do whatever you want. No one can ask you, "Why did you do this?" So there's nothing to prevent you from spanking the child, from grounding him, from not allowing him to do this or that. Nothing is preventing you. And sometimes Satan comes to you and say that this is the right thing to do. And that is why abusive parents result in abusive children. And you can see this hostile way of handling reflecting in the children's psychology, in how they treat other children at school, in the neighborhood, how they treat their siblings.
Okay, we're still concentrating on the group below 10 years, Sheikh. We've seen from what you've mentioned from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ how he treated the young kids with much respect as well. But they're still kids. How do we balance it out?
Well, balancing it out goes back to how your child is and how wise you are. Now, when we said that we should treat the children with love and care, this does not mean at all that we do not punish them. Because we have to reprimand them, we have to discipline them. Otherwise, they will be too spoiled. They'll do whatever they want, knowing that no one is there to correct them. For example, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Instruct your children to pray when they're 7, and spank them over prayers when they're 10. Meaning that you don't jump to spanking them before going these 3 years, from 7 until they're 10. Imagine 3 years, 360 days, 5 prayers per day. And all what you do is, "Come son, let's pray. Did you pray, my son or my daughter? Come on, may Allah Azza wa Jal guide you. If you do, oh mashallah, you prayed, Allah will reward you, will do this for you." And the child is listening for 3 years, 5 times a day, of these instructions to pray. Encouragement and trying to get him into the system. After the year of 10, if he does not pray, then Islam tells you to spank him. Now, this may not go well down the throat of people living in the West, in countries like the US maybe, or elsewhere, where children have panic buttons. So the minute the father shouts at them, or it's an exaggeration, but in some states I heard that this is applicable, that they have a panic button, and once it's been pushed, then the police comes, and they may take the child and take the custody from the parents, unfortunately. in such a society, you find great disrespect to the parents. You find great respect for the community, because this is what the child grew up to, not respecting others. In Islam, it tells you to love, care, but discipline. And in one hadith, there is a recommendation from the Prophet ﷺ that we hang the stick in a place that everyone can see it. So he's not telling us to use it, but to hang it so that the children would see it and they would be intimidated by it. So, and this happens with all of us. The mother intimidates a child if he wants to make a mistake by saying, look at the stick, your father is going to hit you with it if you don't listen to what we have to say, or if you don't do your chores, or if you don't pray on time, etc.
Something symbolic.
Yes, but there has to be the role of discipline.
Okay, we're going to come to the role of discipline, Sheikh. But remember my first questions I asked you, what was the right of the child? And why I ask you this is that if the parent fulfilled the right, and we said that this is the foundation of the family, that if the parents fulfilled this right towards the child, then in a respect that they are really correcting and giving the child the right upbringing from the very beginning. Why I also categorized the groups in below 10 is because of the same hadith you've mentioned, that we should encourage the child to pray and then beat them after 10.
Not beat them, spank them.
Okay.
Because beating them is a little bit too much.
Okay, spanking them. One of the things I want you, if you can highlight here as well, Sheikh, is that we know many of the past scholars memorized the Quran before the age of 10. What is the responsibility, the Islamic responsibility of the parent during this time period, from the age of, birth to 10? What do we give to our kids from an Islamic perspective?
Well, it's a good point that you've mentioned. Some of the scholars memorized the Quran when they were 7 years old, as in the case of Imam Shafi'i, Imam al-Bukhari, and other great scholars of Islam. It is a great responsibility upon the parents to invest in their children at this early age. And by investing, I mean to try and plant in them good characters. Not good characters, good characteristics, in the sense that they grow up being truthful, being honest. They grow up knowing who they worship. It is not the right thing to always treat our children as they are children without any brains. It's always great to talk to them in a level suitable to their age. Teaching them Quran, teaching them attributes of Allah, making them aware of Allah's looking over them and looking at what they're doing and feeling protected by Allah the Almighty. All of these nice ideas, once given to the child at an early age, enlightens him and opens his borders a lot. Having said that, we have to be very careful not to generalize and not to think that all children can be scholars, can memorize Quran at this early age, which calls for frustration among a lot of the parents.
Yes.
They just spank the kids. They're not memorizing the Quran. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. Well, they're not supposed to. Not all the children are the same level. We have to take every child and look into his needs.
So that brings up a very important point here. It's upon the parents as well to really analyze which category their child fall into, in terms of bringing them up with the right upbringing. That's correct?
It's true. We can't have all the children scholars. And we can't have them all to be physicians or to be engineers or all of them to be pilots. You have to have different intentions and different directions, and things that this child loves may not be suitable for the other child. But there is a common denominator, and that is that they all should respect Islam. They should have the minimum acceptable knowledge about Islam, about Allah, about the Quran, and from there they go on to pursue whatever they wish.
Okay, let's look at the other category of children now, above 10. And this is the age where, when 12, 13 are when the girls become mature. The same, a year or two after the boys become mature, is preparing them for the other life, which means the life of obligation towards Allah's commandment. How does the relationship change during this time period? And of course we know from experience as well, the upbringing of teenage children, especially in these times, is very difficult. How does the parent make that transition stage in terms of upbringing their kids in during that time period?
Before this, I'd like to add something. Also, you should respect the mentality and the way of thinking of the child. You don't say that he is still young. Also, show some respect towards him, because if you didn't respect his way of thinking, he will deceive you. He will think of the grown-up as a man who doesn't think properly, and he will try to deceive you and make fake stories and lies, because he thinks that your way of thinking is at the surface. So you should show some respect towards his mind and teach him how to furnish his blank sheet, because the child, when he is born, his head is like a blank sheet. You should furnish it with whatever you want, but as long as it corresponds to the rules of Islam and Sharia.
Jazakallah khair. That's a very good point, mashallah, Brother Mahmoud. Yeah, so what Brother Mahmoud, and this comes into the transition stage as well. It really comes into the transition stage, is what really you want your kid to be. That's why I asked the question, what should we be our Islamic obligation for the first 10 years? But when they go into that age now, it's a different life. And especially places like America, a kid at the age of 13 really believes he's a big man. Right? How do we make that transition along with the kid?
If we went from A and we began from square zero, then things would progress naturally, as Brother Mahmoud said. We have to talk to the child as a person with understanding.
To share your ideas with him.
And not necessarily sharing the ideas, but respect him. Talk to him. Don't treat the child as no one. I heard one of the brothers saying that whenever I wanted to do something that is connected to the family, I used to gather the children with their mother, young and old, and I would ask them and consult them. Listen, my car is 10 years old. I want to buy a new car. So what do you think? And they all contribute, thinking at the conclusion, at the end, that they participated in something that benefited the whole family. We tend to be in control of everything. I decide where to go, when to go, what to spend, when to go to bed, and when to wake up. Well, it's about time to give the child a room to maneuver and to make choices of his own, because this gives him respect and this gives him self-confidence. It was reported that Umar ibn Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, was once walking, and there were a group of children playing. And you know Umar is Umar. The Prophet said, if Umar took away, the shaitan takes the other way. He would not face him. So all the children, the minute they saw this great ruler of Islam, the one who conquered all the areas and the countries around Arabia, who conquered Persia and Rome, and etc., they all fled. They all went away from his way, except one boy stood up in the middle of the road. So Umar looked at him and said, "Boy, what are you doing? Why didn't you run with the other boys?" He said, "Well, Amir al-Mu'mineen, O Caliph of Islam, the road is not so narrow so that I would give you away, and I didn't do anything wrong to run away from you." He was so pleased with that. He congratulated the boy, who some say is Abdullah ibn Zubair ibn al-Awwam. May Allah be pleased with him and with his father. Abdullah his father, Zubair, who was the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, whose mother was Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib, who used to treat him really hard so that he becomes a man, and he became a man. Az-Zubair used to carry Abdullah on his back at battlefield when he was like 6 or 7 years old, just to see and learn how cavalry is and how bravery is. So this is, nowadays, if my child comes and says, Father, can I help you in a research or something, I would say, no, you will not understand. Even if the child is 25 years old.
Yes.
I still consider it or him or she that she would not understand. And this is wrong. You should talk to them. You should try to elevate their level of thinking instead of, stepping over them.
Okay.
Even this will help them to participate in our community and to add to its benefits, to make good deeds in our community, which needs more to be improved.
And I think that supports the idea what the Sheikh is saying. It builds self-confidence
Yes.
to the child. Okay, we'll take a short break here on The Straight Path, and we'll be back right after this.
Now my world is bright. Islam is my sight.
We are excited to inform our viewers that the Quran in Depth with Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan will be filmed live starting on Mondays at 1800 GMT.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the Quran, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ, that we reveal from the Quran what is cure and mercy to the believers. So the Quran is the cure physically to the diseases physically in the body and in the heart. We were ordered to recite Surah Al-Fatiha in every time we stand in the Salah, pillar of the Salah. We need to change our life according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, according to this book. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that the Quran is the thing between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever holds fast to it, he would never be led astray.
We will take your calls and answer any questions you may have, as well as help you in your journey to understand the Quran properly. We hope you will join Huda TV and Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan every Monday from 1800 GMT until 1900 GMT for the Quran in Depth.
Now my world is bright. Islam is my sight.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. You're watching The Straight Path. Today's topic, how to correct your child the Islamic way. Sheikh Qasim, we dealt a bit about the upbringing of the child, and it built the foundation towards correcting. Because if you build the foundation the right way, it limits correction in the child's future. And we just said that allowing the kid to participate, allowing the child to feel confident, it really helps in his upbringing, and it lowers the amount of time you have to be patient, as we say in correcting him. Okay, let's look at the scenario now that the child does something wrong. How does the parent react?
It depends. See, it is very wrong to kill a mosquito with a cannon. See, you have to look into the gravity and the seriousness of this mistake. And again, was it intentional or by accident? And again, is it in religion or in worldly matters? And again, is it repetitive or once every blue moon or once the first time you've ever done this? It depends from one situation to the other.
Okay.
And again, are we supposed to spy on our children? Are we supposed to choke them to death that they cannot breathe without our permission? Is this the right way of doing it? Now, some in the Arab world or the Muslim world may think that, yes, this is the right way of doing it. Nobody is there to stop me. But if it's in the West, in the US or in Europe, you can't do this, because the sky is the limit. They're allowed to do whatever they wish.
Yes.
So it depends from one incident to the other. And you have to look long term relationship rather than short term. Because if you're looking at short term, everything is going to be wrong and taboo. But if you're looking at long term, you may neglect or pretend that you're not seeing few things. Not having said that, I'm not talking about blunt haram things. So that my boy is going out with his girlfriend and they're spending the night somewhere, and I said, no, I'm going to pretend that I don't know where he's going.
Okay, let's quickly categorize it then. First time, small mistake, how does the parent react?
The parent react in showing the child that this was wrong, and if it's a sin, they'll tell him why it's wrong, and they try to communicate. Now, in most houses, the thing is, Simon says, don't do this. Why? Simon said, don't do it, and he did not ask any questions. So, don't do it, end of discussion. That's it. And if you treat your children in such a fashion, as Brother Mahmoud said, they will find a way. Whenever there's a will, there's a way. They'll deceive you, they'll cheat you, they'll go back behind your back and do whatever they wish. The best way is that the conviction is from within. So tell them that it's something wrong what they had done. You're angry with them, but I know that this is the first time and that you did not intentionally want to do this. And if you have any questions, go ahead. And, and the child would come, or the boy, or the teenage, would come and try to justify what he had done. And you have to communicate with the child with a disciplined way, in the sense that you've got to control. Because
you have to suppress that anger.
Yes, but at the same time, you have to be in control, because it's not a democracy. Saying that, well, yeah, okay, but I'd like to go with my girlfriend. Everybody's doing it. Yeah, my son, it's haram. You're not supposed to do this.
You should give him some pieces of advice.
Yeah, but you don't leave it so open. So the such what's wrong with it? What's wrong with adultery?
Okay, if you make him understand what's wrong with it, he will be persuaded from within and will stop doing this action. Rather than if you said him stop this, he will not stop. He doesn't understand why. Why should I stop?
This is true, but unfortunately, you cannot persuade them all the time. So that's why I said it's not a democracy.
Yeah, especially, not to cut you, Sheikh, especially in the time right now in America where there's a generation gap, where the parents are old people coming from their origin countries and their kids are American. They're brought up in the American or the European culture. So when they look at their dad and their mom, they said, okay, they're a bit backwards
cultural.
And cultural. As you said, that maybe that point of persuasion doesn't work all the time.
Yeah, well, for those who are living abroad, I would definitely ask them to immigrate, if possible, to a Muslim country, because it is next to impossible to upbring your child in an Islamic way, unless Allah Azza wa Jal has bestowed His mercy upon you. But if you are cornered, and if you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, have nowhere to go. If I try to immigrate to or migrate to any of the Islamic countries, they'll close the doors in front of me. Then the least you could do is try your best by upbringing your children to fear Allah, to observe Allah Azza wa Jal, to believe in what they do for the sake of Allah. Bring the attributes, the beautiful attributes of Allah. Don't only threaten them with fire, because after a while they say, I don't see any fire. But always try to make them know who Allah the Almighty is, His beautiful attributes, the rewards He has prepared for those who obey Him. And at the same time, you have to prioritize and look into what your children are getting into. Sometimes, and we find this a lot, you find the parents are like 24/7 watching the monitor of their children's PC or laptop. What are you watching? And they're checking on the websites they're going into. And to the extent that the kids, they're the geniuses. They've got like USBs, hard disk drives. They've got special sites to hide what they're doing, and a mirror web page, so that And the parents, maybe they are from the Stone Ages. They don't even know how to operate something like this. So you have to be careful. If you keep on treating your child like this, he's going to cheat on you because it's going to be a challenge. Even if he's not interested in cheating, but just the heck of it.
Yes.
It's a challenge. I've got to do it.
My kids love challenges.
It's true, but we have to pretend. We have to avoid such cases. And we have to pretend that we're not seeing. Give them some room, but not all the way to sin.
Okay, and that's a good point you mentioned in terms of balancing it out. That the parents is not always on the back, but he doesn't leave his kid completely. Okay, let us look at the other part of when a kid does something that is major, and then we see this a lot in America, where we have teenage pregnancy, girls becoming pregnant before marriage. Does the parent disregard their kids after this? How does a parent react when their kid does something that is very wrong? And this, of course, in the Arab world, it's so limited when compared to the Western world.
This is very unfortunate. This saddens the heart and depresses a person just to think of it. But you have to look at things from the spectrum of Islam, and you have to weigh things accordingly. If the daughter fornicates and she's pregnant now, you have two solutions. One, to discredit her, kick her out, and the hell with her, as a lot of the Muslims may do.
Yeah, it's quite common actually to do that.
Or some would go to even extreme measures and what they call honor killing. And honor has nothing to do with it. This is completely prohibited in Islam. It's a sin. It's a major sin. It takes belief and iman out of the heart for those who commit fornication or adultery. Yet it is still a sin. You have to put it in proportion. The second way of doing it is to accommodate this sinner, try to reprimand, advise, try to incubate this girl so that may Allah guide her back to Islam. And in 95% this works. Now there is always the 5% that the child, the boy, the girl are defiant and they're not willing to kneel and confess of the mistake and show deep remorse. And in this case you have to evaluate. If I keep this child in the house, which would lead to corrupting the other good children of mine, no, this I have to sacrifice this child's well-being with the rest of the flock. So I kick this boy out, kick this girl out, because it's a hopeless case. But if I have, if he is the only child, or she is the only daughter that I have, and no one is going to be influenced, I keep on trying with love, with care, and with advice, with changing the methodology of dealing with her or with him.
You should change the ways of punishment. You don't let her expect what the next punishment will be. You should vary between different ways of punishment and also recompensation to encourage her or to make her be fear Allah, also fear the punishment.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Brother Mahmoud. We have about 1 minute remaining on the episode, Sheikh. All what we have said can be attributed to the parents who make an effort in bringing up their kids and giving them the proper upbringing to correct their kids. There are some parents that are not, I don't want to say they don't care, but they're lazy. If you can quickly give us an advice before we close up the episode, what do you say to those parents who just lay back and let everything just happen? And it's quite common, especially in these busy times for parents.
Well, first of all, even those who are careful and trying their best, this might not be good enough. Because at the end of the day, as I said earlier, it is within the hands of Allah. You do what you're supposed to do. The result, it's with Allah. And in some cases, we find lazy parents who are neglecting their kids, but their kids become imams and become scholars of Islam. But at the end of the day, this parent is questionable. He's accountable in front of Allah Azza wa Jal for his negligence. So if he does not do the efforts needed, whatever sin his child would do, it's going to reflect back on him, because he's going to get the credit. And if his child was brought up in a nice way because of your doing, you taught him Quran, you taught him how to be a good practicing Muslim, and he's doing good deeds, then also you will be credited for these good deeds. So at the end of the day, it's an investment. Whatever you invest in your child, you're going to reap the fruit out of it later on.
That's very well said. Jazakallah khair for being with us today, Sheikh Asim. Brother Mahmoud Saeed, it's a pleasure having you on the straight path. And as Sheikh Asim just close off the episode by saying, whatever you sow, you shall reap. Whatever you invest, that's the profit we will gain, inshallah. So we hope that what we have said today has benefited all of you parents. And if you have a question or comment, you can write to us at straightpath@huda.tv. That's all we have for today. Until next time, we leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Now I found the light after those long dark nights. Now my world is bright. Islam is my sight. Now I found the light after those long dark nights. Now my world is bright. Islam is my sight. Now my world is bright. Islam is my sight. Now my world is bright. Islam is my sight. Islam is my sight.